Welcome to the Becoming a Pilot podcast, where we share first-hand experiences, practical advice, and insights from pilots at every stage of their journey. I'm your host, Dave Angus, and whether you're just starting out or working towards your next rating, we're here to help you navigate the path to becoming a pilot. So buckle up, stay tuned, and let's talk all things aviation.
This podcast is brought to you by Genesis Flight College, Canada's premier flight center. With an advanced fleet of Diamond aircraft and experienced instructors, Genesis Flight College provides top-tier training in the heart of southern Georgian Bay. Ready to start your journey to becoming a pilot? Inquire today.
Welcome back to the Becoming a Pilot podcast. I'm Dave, and I am with Sarhvesh again, one of our other instructors here at Genesis. So Sarhvesh, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
So today we're going to talk about the pathway to the first solo. So the pathway to the first solo, right from lesson number one. We'll omit the discovery flight. We'll say let's say our second flight. We'll go from there all the way up to our first solo. Okay, so I'm a new student. I come into Genesis here. I'm all eager to learn. You've given me my homework. What do we start with?
Yeah, so honestly, like the biggest part in aviation starting off is a lot of groundwork.
Yes.
You're going to show up that first day and oh my God, like I just want to fly the aircraft.
Yeah, I know.
I'm only having to do this, but it's always that first day, sometimes just a long 3-hour ground session of, you got to learn first, hey, the weight and balance, do we fit? You got to learn everything about that aircraft, right? But hey, am I safe to even fly this aircraft? You want to learn all these small little things, pre-flight your plane. Is that plane ready for me?
Right.
Once that plane's ready for you, that first lesson, it's going to be exciting, right? I always see that. People like, oh, you finally get to go in that aircraft, and their face lights up.
Yeah,
right? It's a good feeling to see as an instructor too.
I always just to kind of like tie into that. I remember the first time. So before I got into flying, I did a lot of flight sim stuff.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, geez, I don't know how many thousands of hours ever since I was a kid playing flight sim stuff. And I remember when I was like, okay, I'm going to make the plunge now. I'm going to start flying. And the school that I was going to was 172s, and I'm like, I'm going to fly this 172. Anyways. It was an old busted up 172 that I was flying in at the school. But I remember showing up. It was raining. I just went in for a meeting. I drove like an hour and 15 minutes to go have this meeting with an instructor, and I'm all eager to learn. And I'm like, can we go out and see the airplane? And he's like, it's raining out. And I'm like, I really want to go see it. I remember opening that door and seeing in the flesh, like the first like steam gauge cockpit and like touching things, and it was like incredible. It was wild. Like it was so like kind of like an out of body experience. It was crazy. So I derailed you a little bit, but I remember how exciting that was.
Yeah, no, that I mean, even for me, it's just so exciting. You first, it's like, oh, this is what I'm going to be flying. You got to work for it, but it's something that's really rewarding. But yeah, the path first solo, it's something that really takes a lot of confidence building, I find.
Sure.
Right. It's something that you have to really get that student comfortable in that aircraft, because hey, when they go for that first solo, you're not there. I'm not there.
Yeah.
Right. So that's something that we really try to do. We have a very structured sort of program. So how it works is when you first start off, once you pass the groundwork, you're confident, comfortable with that. We start off with something called like attitudes and movements.
Okay.
It's essentially like the foundation, right, of everything that comes to flying, and also sets you up for future lessons right before that first solo.
Right.
But you're going to find when you first start your flight training, your instructor is going to always relate it back to some sort of attitude.
Right.
So that first lesson really is an important lesson towards that path of flight solo, I'd say.
It's so important. It's like, yeah, everything we do for the rest of your flying career is always based on attitudes. Mm-hmm. And to get from one attitude to the next, we have to have a movement, right? So yeah, it is the number one building block to everything that's to come, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I find that with that building block, and then you also build confidence in that aircraft. So we progress it nice and slow, ease you into it, show you the foundation, and it's just like a building block, right? You keep stacking. Okay, I have the foundation now. I can add more things to it. Eventually, we get into the air work out in the practice area. So we go out, we do steep turns, stalls, slow flight. I emphasize slow flight because that's a pretty handy exercise and something that if you master, it's going to create for very good landings.
Right.
As you're coming in for that landing, essentially what you're doing is you're transitioning through that slow flight phase right before you touch down.
Right.
Every single time. The better you can control your aircraft in that slow flight phase,
right,
the better your landing is going to be.
Right.
Right.
And in two ways as well. And I have a situation that I had with a student that was a great learning opportunity for him, where, okay, so we come down and we round out, we pass through slow flight, right? So we kind of pass through it while transitioning to the ground. We can also get stuck in it. We do an overshoot, right? So this is why not only getting into the slow flight, recognizing slow flight, but the recovery is so important, because my student went mixture prop throttle, flaps went to takeoff, and he pulled the nose back. Stayed at 60 knots, 55 knots, didn't climb, full power, and we're just slow flight above the runway. And we're stuck in this slow flight, right? And he's looking at me like, what the heck is going on? We're not climbing, whatever. But he had himself on that backside of the power curve, which is slow flight. And so ton of power, really nose high attitude, and not increasing airspeed, not climbing, not doing anything.
I just staying
right? Just staying there. And that's why it's so important to learn that recovery of, hey, we got to get the nose down, because we got to allow the airplane to use that energy, build that energy, right? So we go at full power and the nose needs to come down, and then drop the nose. Oh, speed's coming up. Boom, climb down.
I can
right?
climb again.
Yeah, here we go. We're back up, right? So it's cool, like a really cool learning opportunity for him, a good real world experience. But it shows the importance of why do we do slow flight first? Why not just let's sit in a circuit and do depth by circuit until I can get this down? Well, all these building blocks are there for a reason, right? And we try to break it down as much as possible into smaller bite-sized chunks so that it's not too overwhelming. It's a lot. We take for granted, how difficult flying is because we do it every day. I always say it to my students, because I'll go, oh, you land the airplane so well, or you do this so well. I have an unfair advantage. I sit in this plane all day. You don't. You come in here twice a week, right? So I have a little bit of an advantage here, right? Mm-hmm. So building those blocks and getting really good at it, and try not to rush through it. I find a lot of people like, okay, yeah, I got that stall. I don't want to practice it. I go, no, let's keep practicing it. There's a reason for it, right? And maybe in the stall, well, okay, we could stall in the circuit, but the recovery, right? That recovery is huge. And it also builds into even the overshoot recoveries, not too much different.
No,
the different, but not too much, right? It all builds on each other.
Yeah, I find like exactly what you're saying, like that the building block really helps you just set up for that circuit a lot better. Like there's a reason why Transport Canada has put out this guide and told us as instructor, hey, follow this. There's actually there's a reason behind it, right? You first build that confidence and comfortability in the aircraft. You understand how this aircraft performs. And the biggest thing is, if something happens, you can recover.
Yes.
Right? So that's as long as you know your procedures, you can recover this aircraft. That's how, because building up to that first solo, you've probably seen it lots of times too. They're nervous. They're not comfortable in that aircraft. And doing these building block exercises helps you kind of alleviate those nerves a little bit. Yeah. You look at it and you're like, oh, okay, hey, I can recover from a stall.
Right.
But obviously having a stall close to the ground is dangerous as is, but the quicker you are and the more confident you are in your skills and recovering, could be the difference between, just recovering quickly in that circuit, saving your life, right?
Well, when you're saying there about that fear and nervousness, one of my students had this great line. I love it. And the line is, knowledge dispels fear. And I always thought that was always really cool, because not only with flying, it applies to anything in life. But that knowledge is what's going to remove the fear of crashing on that landing, that fear of crosswind landings. And it's not just knowledge, but practice, right? So building those abilities is what's going to dispel that fear or that uncertainty or that nervousness, right? Because that's what a fear is, right? It doesn't give us the warm and fuzzy. It doesn't make us feel good, right? So the only way to get past that is either train, learn more about it, reading about it, sitting down with the instructor, finding out what these problem areas are and how to fix it.
Sure.
So we've gone through the air work. We're comfortable with that. We get into the circuit and whack. Every time I come, I land. My circuit's beautiful. My procedures are great. I've been chair flying, exactly what Sarhvesh has been telling me to do. Right? I come in and every time I land, I rock that thing on the ground where I think it needs to go to maintenance and get checked out. How do I fix this problem? It's like one of the most common problems I've been
hearing. That's 100%. Like even I had issues with my first solo. Like I kept rounding out high, slamming it down, and I was getting frustrated with myself, right? So Yeah, I had about 2 lessons of that, 3 lessons. I'm like, man, I just don't think this is for me. But I didn't give up. You don't give up, right? That's the biggest thing. It's how can I fix these issues? So sometimes it comes down to something as small as, hey, like that booster seat that I have, just being able to see outside, right? Hopefully that's identified much earlier on, but sometimes you identify in the circuit.
Yeah.
Because you want to be able to go back to your building blocks. When you're coming in for that landing, it's transitioning as you're approaching to that cruise attitude. Right? While you're transitioning to that cruise attitude, you still let that airspeed bleed off. And when your airspeed bleeds off, you get into now what we call the slow flight grades.
Right.
So remember that building block we talked about?
Yeah,
So if you can handle your slow flight,
Right.
it's going to set you up for a lot more successful landing. So it could come down to just, your understanding, like what you said, knowledge, right? Of, hey, how does this aircraft handle in slow flight? Or your attitude that you set,
And back to what we were just saying, the comfortability of it, right? So maybe that means as the student, if you don't feel comfortable with slow flight, that you go up and do it again. You go up and practice it again with your instructor, right? You want to be comfortable at altitude because now we're doing it not at altitude.
Right,
We're
close
doing
to the
it
ground.
5 feet, 3 feet, 2 feet, ideally maybe even a foot above the ground, right? And so we need to feel really comfortable with the aircraft at that point. Now that's tough at a PPL when you have minimal hours, but we want to be as comfortable as we can. And that's what we're looking for as instructors, because we ultimately have to release you and then explain when you have an unsuccessful landing. We have to be able to explain why we let them go. But ultimately we want people to feel comfortable, right? So building on those building blocks. So you said the seat position, that was a big one for me. I raised my seat up and it fixed a lot of my problems. Because I found with me, going back to it saying, doing a lot of the sim stuff before, I found I could line up the runway very well, right? Like I had good visuals. Yeah. I knew kind of spacing. I was pretty good with that. But that transition to the landing is nothing like in a at-home sim. Here, it's a little bit different. Like the sims here are pretty close. They're pretty much as good as it's going to get, and it's quite good. But at home, you have no external elements.
No, you think you're the best pilot inside those sims at home. You're the best pilot.
Yeah, I can fly a 777 right now if it were up to my simulator at home. So, learning those visual cues and close to the ground for me. I liked to see a little bit more of the runway in my peripheral than some other people might like, right? So I like being boosted just a little bit, right? So everyone's different. I think if you used a booster, your head would go through the top of the canopy. You wouldn't be seeing too much.
I prefer just sitting without the booster there. But no, like those small little things, right? It's no one solution fixes all.
Right.
Every student's different. Every person flying the aircraft is different. What you might like might not be something that I like.
Right.
Or what I like, vice versa. So finding those small little things that can help you, like that booster seat. Sometimes if you're still slamming the aircraft down, you're not holding that flare off long enough.
Right.
It just means that you're not controlling the aircraft well in slow flight in that moment.
Right.
So some suggestions that we could even use, like tools with your instructor, is just doing slow flight over the runway.
Right.
Do not land that aircraft.
Yeah.
Hold it, that 3 to 5 feet just above the ground for as long as you can down that runway, and then overshoot at the end.
Yeah.
Right. Just getting that repetition, seeing that, hey, this is my height off the ground. This is what I want to see right before that final touchdown.
Well, exactly. I remember one of my instructor, when I was learning how to land and do all that, he would just keep saying in my ear, don't land, don't land, don't land, don't land, don't land. And so that kind of gave me that mindset of just really trying to keep that nose up. So I didn't have any power. I know I'm going to touch down some way. Don't land, don't land, don't land.
You just have him in the ear.
Yeah, and you just go keep that back pressure, keep pulling it back, keep trying, and then boom, touchdown, right?
I know with you, it's always just butter landings, nothing else.
Not with me. I don't know. Those poor airplanes when I get out of it. No. It makes a huge difference when you have that mentality. I've said it before, and I say it to all my students as well, is when you want to be comfortable with the overshoot, because every landing is an overshoot with the option to land, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that's 100%.
That's kind of more of a different topic that we can go into, but having that same mentality slows things down for you, and when you're in that round, it can help pull the nerves down slightly, right? Because you're like, I'm not landing. I'm just going to hold the airplane off. I'm going to try not to land. And then you allow it to land because now we've confirmed that it's safe to do so, right? So you're saying the seat position, practicing our slow flight. Also, I like your visual, right? A lot of people look out the nose of the airplane, look right down at the lines, right? So trying to get those eyes down the runway, right? So looking for here, we're kind of lucky at both sides. There's trees. So I say, look at the trees, look at the tree line. And I know it can be a tough thing for a new pilot to do, but you're looking at those trees and you can see in your peripheral vision the side of the runway. And it kind of pops out when you start going down towards the ground, right? And when that pops out, that's when I know I give that last little bit, just a little bit. We're not, trying to pull full aft on the stick. Just a little bit of back pressure to protect that nose wheel, and then we hold that. And then I always say, fly it into the hangar, right? Just don't stop flying the airplane. Don't touch down. Oh, we're good. Let go of the stick, right? Fly that airplane until it's parked, right?
Yeah. And yeah, with that too, a lot of the times I find that students are hesitant with that back pressure, holding that plane off as long as possible because they're worried about what's at the back, that tail strike.
Right.
So what I've done, especially when I see a student who just lands flat, hard sometimes, it's not adding that back pressure. They're worried, and I ask them, like, hey, why aren't you adding that back pressure? And the number one response, I don't want a tail strike this time.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, all right, that's a good thing to have. When I have a tail strike the plane. So I have them sit in the plane.
Yeah.
I actually push the plane down to the tail strike position.
Right.
Just so when they're sitting in that plane, they look outside, they can see, wow.
It's really nose high.
Really nose high.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever gotten close to that. And then that's when you kind of like, it's that mental block sometimes. It's like, okay, I've gotten past that. Like, okay, wow, I really need a very quite nose high to even touch that tail. So I think that's also a sort of thing that can help students.
Yeah, sometimes as well, I find with, I think that's a fantastic one. I've used that one and it's great. I find as well, and instructors were notoriously bad for this, is flying the airplane. Like, I'm not saying skill wise, I'm just saying like, we always feel bad. Like the student is paying. So we're like, I want them on the controls a lot, as much as possible. But I think something that we can do better as instructors, and that I try to do, is take control, not even necessarily a little bit more, but on little things like, okay, I'm going to do the takeoff and I want you to just look at the attitude, right? Because when they're flying and I'm like, okay, watch the attitude on takeoff. When you have 10 hours, you're like, you're not looking at anything. It's like firewall the throttle and hope for the best, right? But watching that attitude, because all a landing is essentially the takeoff played in reverse.
Right, yeah.
So if you can see what the attitude is when you take off, emulate that on your landing, right? And that is your landing attitude.
That's a good point,
right?
yeah.
And we don't hit the tail every time we take off. That would take a lot of work.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just using that takeoff attitude. So I can see, when I take off, because we're not scared about coming and touching the ground, so people have no problem getting that nose up to the horizon or whatever, right? So that's one that I try to do as well as, and I recommend any student, whether it be our student or elsewhere, is just tell your instructor to do a takeoff and watch it. Get a good mental picture of how it looks when you come into land. So we've talked about the seat position, eye position, getting better with our fundamental skills, one of which being slow flight, looking at that takeoff attitude. Any other quick tips you have?
Well, Genesis, we actually have sim, right? That it's always, you practice those building blocks, just flying the circuit. It's not an easy thing to fly. It's a lot happening in that circuit in such a quick period. And, you can couch fly, but having at least a bit of a feel of that aircraft will also help you really with that circuit and landing. Yeah.
Repetition is the biggest thing, and it's a lot cheaper to do it in the simulator, right?
Yeah.
So sitting in there, like I recommend the MR sim for that, because it's very similar to the airplane. And they just keep going, and you can just hit replay, back. You're back, 2 mile final, do it again, back, and you could get in an hour, you get 20 repetitions in easy.
Maybe 5 or 6 in the plane.
It takes 6 minutes roughly to do a circuit, and then someone cuts you off and you got to overshoot or something, and now you're down to 5. It's tough to get a lot in, and normally the issue is not takeoffs or the circuit itself, because it's not too bad, right? It's a lot less nerve-wracking. That's the biggest thing, is the nerves, right?
Yeah. And I say like the last biggest thing is flying consistently pre-PPL, pre-solo. Right. I find sometimes students show up once a week or 2 times a week. And I understand the money is an issue, but I always suggest like, hey, you should save up a bit and try to get everything done in one smooth flow, because flying's not easy. You show up once every 2 weeks or whatever it may be. You regress naturally. As humans, you will regress, right? So in that pre-solo stage, you're being solo in 15, 20 hours. 15, 20 hours over the course of 2 weeks, you might be really good. 15, 20 hours over the course of 3 months, not the same.
3 years.
3 years, yeah. There's a few circumstances like that too, but
For sure, the consistency is huge. So we've gone through this. Sarhvesh, you've told me that I am ready to go solo.
let's take it.
First thing that I always say to my students is, and we've said this earlier, is that I wouldn't release you solo if I didn't feel 100% comfortable. Because sometimes they still feel uncomfortable about themselves, right? A little self-conscious or whatever. I wouldn't release you solo unless I was 100% sure that you were going to be safe and able to do this. Okay, so that's out the window. That's done. We know that they're going to be safe. What can that student expect on their first solo?
Well, actually, the moment you close that canopy without your instructor in there, it's game time.
Yeah.
Just even recalling this my solo, I was like, it's nerve-wracking when you see your instructor just stepping out the plane. No, like,
Right.
where's this guy?
Yeah.
Where's he going?
Yeah.
It's nerve-wracking, but once you close that plane and you get going through your checks, keep it the exact same as you would with your instructor. Don't start changing something. Oh, he's not here. Let me just skip this check. No, keep it the exact same. Keep it consistent, right? And I find that also helps you alleviate your nerves because now you're just so focused on getting this aircraft airborne, getting it back down, right? So once you've gone past that, you've taken off. That plane is also going to be lighter with the instructor there.
Better
for that landing, you might have to hold the plane off for a bit longer than you're used to. And I always give that as like it's like always, okay, remember, when I'm not there, that plane's going to be lighter. It's going to float a lot longer. Hold it off. Right. And
patience.
And we're always going to be listening, right? If they have any issues, we are there listening. But like you said, we wouldn't release them unless they were safe.
Right.
And I tell them, once you close that canopy, game time.
Yeah.
Game 7, right? It's game 7. And you gotta, it matters. So.
And I love what you said there about not changing anything. The amount of times I've been asked on solos or whatever, it's like, oh, do I have to do the run up or do I have to do this? Because we just did it, right? Because normally on those first ones, we'll go up, we'll do the run up, and then they'll do a couple circuits, everything's good. I have to hop out of the plane and away they go. I said, do everything. And like, you may have your dad, someone at the airport saying, don't do run-ups. They're wrecking your prop. They're wrecking this. You're talking to somebody who may be an experienced pilot that can, or whatever, or somebody that's been so removed out of it that shouldn't be giving you advice.
Either or, who knows?
But we want to teach that standardization because as soon as we deviate, that's when things change. I say this all the time, and I know like I'm probably way too overboard for this, but like little things like when we do the run up and students will put the flaps down and they go, okay, I'm going to put the flap to take off because I know that's coming next.
Yeah.
And I always just say, don't do that. The checklist doesn't say go to takeoff flap. And to me, it's something so minor. Sure, is it going to change anything? No, probably not. But it instills that mentality of I can change it a little bit, right? When we talk about the space shuttle, the normalization of deviance, right? Where we change something, we change something just a little, or we allow something that's off, off margin by a little bit. Well, that little bit may be fine now, but then the next time we let it a little bit more, and then the next time we say, I don't need those before takeoff checklists. Now I'm taking off with no flaps, and it's a short runway, and I calculated for with flaps, and now I'm getting to the end of the runway and I don't have enough speed, right? So the little things compound. We call it the Swiss cheese model, but it just keeps compounding, and then it could lead to something. So I always just say, stick to the checklist. What does the checklist say? Follow it, instills good habits, and those will follow you throughout your career.
These checklists were built for a reason, right?
Yeah.
It's not for us as pilots. You just do, I'm smarter than
I always say I'm not smarter than the engineers. There's no chance.
No, the checklist tells me to do this. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm not deviating from anything because it just leads to danger. Like the Swiss cheese model is a perfect model, right? It shows small things fall through the hole.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to something disastrous, and hopefully that never happens. So just stick to the basics, stick to the checklist, keep it the same.
Awesome. Well, I think that's great. I think we covered everything there. And if
I think so.
I'd love to hear if anybody has any other further issues that they're having during their solo, and we can maybe address it in the future.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks so much, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.